WWE ratings continue their trend downwards as we approach the beginning of these brand new 5-year billion-dollar TV deals, with Smackdown moving to broadcast TV on the Fox network, and it seems like they are panic booking at the moment. So how did we get here, and what is the solution? What's good, Internet? My name is Attack Slug, and welcome to some discussion on what is currently going on in this week's WWE. And I want to start with this, right? From the WWE perspective, they gave you what you wanted at WrestleMania. Like Batista, they gave you what you want. And that was, they gave you Kofi as champion, Seth as champion, and Becky as dual champion. So from their perspective, it's like, wait, we gave you what you had been asking for, so why are the ratings continuing to trend downwards? And to look at it from Mania and after on a week-to-week basis, you had those feel-good moments at WrestleMania, right? You had the Raw and SmackDown after Mania, which are usually kind of in limbo as we wait for the Superstar shakeup. So those shows are kind of whatever, right? Then you had like 3 weeks of shakeup as they can't decide where they want to put talent on which show. And then this week, you decide upon this wildcard rule because you're still dropping in the ratings. So sure, let's have guys from Raw on SmackDown, vice versa. Basically, they want Roman on both shows. The big dog. So imagine being someone who does not watch the show regularly, right? You tune into Raw, and that opening segment, that opening talking segment, went through a commercial break. They came back, they were still talking. Where's the wrestling? And when they finally give you the wrestling, it's yet another tag team match that includes Baron Corbin, and he pins your Universal Champion. Now, I do want to say, they were panicking before WrestleMania. They had a bunch of NXT call-ups just out of nowhere when we're the authority now. And from that batch, what happened to EC3? What happened to Nikki Cross? Like, they already have so much talent they aren't even using to begin with. Calling up even more NXT talent and then not using it is a disservice to your NXT product. And then still before Mania, they were like, hey, here's even more. Here's Aleister Black. Here's Ricochet. Here's Gargano and Ciampa. And additional roster faces, fresh faces on your roster, is not going to solve the intrinsic problem of your product. And one of those intrinsic problems has been this motto that no one is bigger than WWE. And when you want your brand to be out front, I can understand why you would have that motto. But you look back at when wrestling was at its most popular in the mid-80s and in the late 90s, you had several stars who were bigger than the brand. And it seems like since the mid-2000s or so, they just cut everyone off at the knees. They hit this ceiling they can't quite get past based upon whoever is the main star at the time. And for 15 years, that was John Cena. Guess what? You banked so much on John Cena, and he's not around anymore. And I get the fact that, okay, we don't want people getting that big to then leave us. But if you keep building stars, big stars, that are crossover stars, then ideally those crossover fans can cross over into wrestling and say, hey, he came from there, that sounds cool, I'll watch that. It's not happening. How many times in the last 15 years where someone who had a lot of potential, a lot of promise, was just fed to John Cena to increase the star power of John Cena? How many angles did they accidentally wander into that could have been amazing hot angles and then they immediately squandered? We got the Nexus, you're losing to John Cena. We got Bray Wyatt, you're losing to John Cena. We got Rusev on a tank, you're losing to John Cena. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we could have had a main event Zack Ryder at the time when he was getting super hot from the internet, from YouTube, but the amount that they buried him almost immediately after that, because they hate when anybody gets big outside of what they have produced. And I could sit here for another half an hour on how badly they screwed up CM Punk in 2011. How did the most mainstream crossover you've had in I don't know how many years end up with a Triple H Kevin Nash ladder match in 2011? How do you screw that up? But again, they don't want to let anybody else get hot enough to run with the ball because they don't want anyone else bigger than WWE. And I did want to actually mention ratings here for a little bit, right? Because I've seen a lot of folks on the internet saying, well, if they just end the brand split. The brand split is bad for ratings. You want to have everybody on every show. But I do want to point out that after this second brand split began in late 2016, SmackDown, for like the first time, began to beat Raw in the ratings. And how, you might ask? They were building new stars and they were producing shows that were worth watching. They were making interesting TV. And what became of that interesting TV? Well, here comes the draft in 2017. And those stars that got hot on SmackDown, guess what? They're going to Raw. Dean Ambrose, you're going to Raw. The Miz, you're going to Raw. Bray Wyatt, who was the champion of SmackDown, you're going to Raw. So they made a show that could beat Raw and then took those guys and put them on Raw, hoping that would translate. It didn't translate. And a large problem with the product is the fact that WWE wants to have these big, epic, memorable moments, right? And things that you would discuss for years and years to come. And the problem in modern day WWE is that they will tell you a moment is a big moment by how they present that moment. But most of the time, they aren't doing the groundwork to actually make that moment mean anything. So while it was cool that Finn Balor brought out the Demon at WrestleMania to fight Bobby Lashley, how many times had he fought Lashley on Raw and it was meaningless? There was no story there. There was no compelling reason to want to see them fight again outside of, hey, the Demon's cool. They spend so much time on 50-50 booking where wins and losses don't matter and no one is truly dominant most of the time. And it's like, had they done that for, say, Taker back in the day, he wouldn't be a force that he is today. He wouldn't have that legendary career if he was losing half the time that he had matches, especially in the beginning. So when you bring up Bray Wyatt and the Wyatt family, and after a couple months they're losing all their feuds and matches, like, they don't seem important to anybody because they almost were always losing. I'm not saying that everyone needs to have a winning streak, but being dominant is going to help any superstar get over, period. But I will say, what made Asuka special in NXT was the streak. In addition to this wild card thing they're doing now, they're also trying to pare back their uploads on YouTube to have less YouTube video to hopefully push you to watching the show on TV and therefore increasing the ratings. And you're trying to push folks to watch TV in 2019. That just seems dumb to me. If you were truly producing a must-see show every single week, people would tune in and not watch it on YouTube. Right now, WWE has perhaps the most stacked roster in their entire history of talent. They have so much talent, they're paying people to sit at home and not work somewhere else. They're spending time on TV actively embarrassing people that won't sign new contracts. The Revival. You have the most stacked roster in history and your ratings are still falling. That's not a roster issue. Having the wild card, having the roster on both shows is not a fix to this problem. Writing more compelling stories is a fix to this problem. The fact that right now, for me, the most interesting thing to watch outside of Bray Wyatt's Firefly Funhouse is Shane and The Miz, because they built Shane and The Miz since Crown Jewel. That says something, because I don't care about Shane at all, but this is the most interesting thing on your show right now. How did that happen? It's 2019. We can no longer rely on these cheap pop returns from Attitude Era stars who are all in their 50s now. And I know, they're booking Goldberg in Saudi Arabia. Besides the point. If you truly want change that could affect your product long term, I would say number one, stop heavily scripting every single talent's promo. Let people sink or swim on their own ability on the microphone and to connect with the audience. If you can't connect with the audience in a promo that is a series of bullet points that kind of have the rest be kind of unscripted and freestyled, then perhaps you shouldn't be in the biggest wrestling company in the world. For as much as WWE says they listen to the people, that we are the authority, they don't mean that. Just look at how they tried to turn Becky Lynch heel when she was going to be fighting Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania. Look at those promos where she was like, you people, it wasn't believable, nobody bought it, and then, alright, fine, she's a face. Like, the fact that they even tried, they don't listen. Getting rid of your brand split, even in a minor fashion with this wild card thing, is, again, not going to solve your problem. Having Roman Reigns on both shows is not going to solve your problem if the stories you are telling does not make people want to watch the matches that are the result of those stories. And the match quality is great. I have no complaints with the overall match quality in WWE. The fact is, there are so many matches for the sake of having matches. I'm not saying bring back a bunch more jobbers. I'm saying you should try, at least try, to give everyone a story. No matter how minor that story is, give them something to work with. And I'm hoping that at some point we get some actual competition. Perhaps that'll be AEW, perhaps it won't. But nothing will light a fire under Vincent Kennedy McMahon than legitimate competition from another billionaire. And then at that point, if you get an actual amount of hungry, competitive superstars in that locker room who have the option to go somewhere else, then perhaps we the fans will get a better product. But what the hell do I know? I'm a dude in a bedroom in front of a green screen, and I'm a tax slug. And I'll see you next time, right here on this channel. Panic Mode!